they told me, my lawyer came at me and said, if you don't accept this plea deal, they're going to give you 80 years.
So, Greg, on that point, man, what got you 21 years?
Yeah, yeah, of course. This was a beefier story. People ask me all the time, and I usually can't spit it in 30 seconds. So sorry if I talk for just a moment on it.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
All right, all right. So yeah, I was ripping and running, man. I was really, really, really abusing drugs at a young age. And I had my reasons from my past that kind of pushed me into trying to erase a lot of the hurt and the pain that you have that you may have experienced as a kid. Maybe I'm speaking to somebody out there that gets this. And so I started abusing drugs and alcohol when I was young in my teens, and it just that took that pain away. And I was like, oh man, this is great. Everybody's telling me these drugs are bad for you and all this stuff, but I've never felt better. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want this pain to be gone. So I'm going to do this. And it wasn't anything real crazy at first, experimentation until you're 15, 16, 17, and you get wheels, then you're out there because you're my age, around there at least. These kids, man, they're driving way later now, but we were 15 driving, 16 with a license, etc. And you had more opportunity. So I was out there just a lot of smoking weed, drinking when I could. I get my hands on stuff like acid, ecstasy, pills, whatever was available. And then I never did coke until I went to California. I went there when I was 19, and I just wanted to smoke weed the whole time, but they were smoking meth. And I was like, dude, that's crazy. I'd never touched that. And after like a week watching them, I was like, yeah, let me try it. Let me try it. Because they smoke a little bit and they're up for a couple of days, just getting a bunch done. And it looked kind of fun for whatever reason. I was like, I'll try it out, trying to be cool too. So I did. Next thing you know, man, I was out there for a little while. Didn't get locked up there, thank goodness. Came back to the East Coast, and there's no crystal meth, especially back then. Like I'm
Heroin,
near Baltimore.
heroin,
Yes,
heroin, and
yes.
coke. Yeah.
Yep, I'm near Baltimore. It's 2 hours away, and that's the heroin capital of the United States. Always has been. That's why they call it Bodymore Murderland, because it's the drug trade is no joke there. A lot of those guys, they were in the prisons that I was at. So that's what I came back with, that taste for meth. You know what I mean? Which was much stronger than Coke. It was way stronger, way cheaper, lasts way longer. And I was like, man. So when I started sniffing powder, it wasn't enough. So I just kept sniffing it and kept sniffing it, kept sniffing it. My nose would close up. Whatever side I was snorting on, it would just completely close up within a certain amount of time, which I learned after, several times, you know, snorting it, man. And I was like, dude, so I have to pack it in as much as I can, as quickly as I can. And that's what I'm gonna do. It's like I'd split an ounce with some buddies, they get 10, 10, and 8, and I'd have 10 grams, others have 10, others have 8. And you get like a little half gram heavy on the top. We split that up into 3 piles for your cigarette nummies, and you're ready to roll all night. Man, my 10 grams, they were going quick. I didn't play around. So it was like, I got to get some money. Next thing you know, I'm not proud of this, but I got myself a gun. I went out and I started robbing people. And people don't believe me when I say this. That gun was never loaded because I didn't want to hurt anybody. If I could have jump scared the money into my pockets, that's what I would have done. And a buddy of mine was like, why don't you load it? I said, because I'm not getting shot or shooting anybody else. What if they pull a gun? I said, then I lay down and go to jail. Like, well, that's stupid. And I was like, you want to shoot somebody and do life? Like, Maryland might execute you. I was like, I'm not doing that. I said, I'm trying to get high. So I ended up doing this for a while, and I got away with it for a long time. Long story short, end up in prison, got ratted out. Guy said something because he got squeezed, and told him to us, anything ever happens, just shut up. Just keep your mouth shut. It didn't play out the way I wanted it to, obviously. So I go in, and the judge smashed me. They were like, they told me, my lawyer came at me and said, if you don't accept this plea deal, they're going to give you 80 years. And I said, whew, okay, what's the plea deal? And it said it's open ended, 12 to 27. I was like, that's so it could be almost 30. And they're like, if they even go by the guidelines. I'm like, man, this is just getting worse. So I said, all right. And I had to call my mom. I was like, this is crazy. What do I do? And we talked about it. And she's like, you got to do what's best. You got to figure it out. And this is a choice you got to make. And I said, all right, okay. So I ended up accepting the plea deal, and it was for 3 armed robberies and various handgun charges, which I was a bunch of armed robbery charges they gave me. At one point, when I counted the charges up, it was something stupid like 139 felony charges they levied against me to scare me, because after the first set of charges, they asked me to testify against someone else. And I told them, put me back on the block and don't ever come at me without a lawyer again. And they didn't like that. So next thing you know, they're throwing charges at me every week. Every week, here's a new set of charges. And I was like, man, this just keeps stacking up. It got to the point where I was looking at 840 years in prison, and it was almost 200 charges total, but it was like 139 felony charges. You're talking about armed robbery, first degree assault, second degree assault, um, uh, everything that have to do with a handgun, wear, carry, and transport, commission of a violent felony with a firearm. I mean, these are some pretty big charges, and they're scaring the crap out of me. And plus, conspiracy charges, people sleep on those, but they don't have to have much. But they can give you, I think it's up to 20 or 25 per. And I had a bunch of those going as well. So I was like, man, I'm really in a bad situation here. So I took the plea deal, and judge was like, all right, I'm gonna give you 8 years for one count, and I'm gonna give you 8 years for the other count to run consecutive. And I was like, oh man, that's 16. I hope he stops. And he was like, in 8 years, run with the third count. And I was like, oh no. And he was like, to run concurrent. And I was like, okay. Thank God for that. And he was like, in 5 years for the handgun charge to run consecutive. So I did real quick math, and I'm sitting there shackled in court, circuit court building. And I was like, that's 21 years. And I'm just sitting there, and I was just stunned. I mean, the courtroom was silent because nobody got smashed like that on this particular day. And he just looked at me with a scowl on his face, and he was like, you got anything to say for yourself? And I just said, thank you, Your Honor. And I went and sat down. I mean, what are you going to say? I'm not going to throw a chair at him like that Dead Presidents movie. That didn't work out for him. Even though it was funny in the movies, I'm not throwing a chair at the judge or lashing out, because it ain't going to get you nowhere but further in the hole. So I went and sat down, and the guy came up after me, had like a traffic violation. I think he got like a couple weekends in jail, and he's like, you okay with that? He was like, yes, sir. After I saw the last guy, you know what I mean? So it's funny now in hindsight, but in the moment I was just frozen. I was like, man, they just gave me 21 years. So that's what I did. And a lot of people have been asking me, but this is not something I can put on TikTok. It's a short form kind of a platform there. So been trying to get it out, but thank you for asking me, man. I do like to clear that up.
Well, Greg, I appreciate your honesty, man, because it's no joke to have to plea deal out. There was a woman on here a couple months ago that had to take the plea deal too, and she didn't feel that it was warranted all the things. I'll be honest with you, we could probably talk 2 hours on just the judicial system in and of itself and how it's laid
Easily.
out. Because I don't know if the two-tier system, the rich and the poor, are really that honest anymore like it used to be. This ain't the 80s anymore.
No, no.
I think after the drug war really kicked into overdrive, there was really a huge turn of events that just changed the way they give out sentences now. I mean, obviously there was other things that are in consideration. There was a high level of hangings and capital punishment back in the day, which kind of alleviated the prison problem. And as they shrink those down,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
Rough.
mean, the mandatory minimums in the federal prison system, that's something that's, it's concerning. You go from powder coke to crack cocaine, and I've seen guys with a thumbnail of crack get 40 years, and I'm like, that's crazy. So
Crazy.
there's definitely a huge disparity in what's going on in the justice system. And then people wonder why recidivism is the way that it is. It's like, man, the way you start a thing is not going to be different than the way you finish a thing. And then all points in between it are completely messed up, corrupt. They're just flipped upside down. it's just it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs. And like you said, I could talk all night about that kind of thing.